Today we're going to be looking at table views. These are actually a really nice way to either show multiple pieces of information inside of one table in an application, to then be able to retrieve multiple pieces of information by linking them into one table view in your automation, or to be able to actually then use a linking table to link tables that are normally separate together so that you can have separate data be displayed as one unified whole. So let's have a look at how we can do this. First, I'm going to show you the output, and then I'm going to show you how I created it. So in this application here, we can come into our home page, and you'll see we have this customer orders table. Now, this is actually two tables in our data store. So we have a customers table, which includes the name about the customer. So we can see we have Bob Smith, we've got an email, and we have their customer ID. In this case, it's the number 2, which you'd probably want to make more sophisticated if you were doing this in live, maybe like a GUID or something more unique. And then also we have 2 entries here for Alice Johnson. So we have Alice Johnson, email, and if you look on the right hand side, we then get to the order information. So the reason Alice is listed twice, whilst Bob is only listed once, is because this is talking about customer orders. So Bob only has one order, and then here we have 2 other orders where Alice is actually linked to that order. So we have order ID 103 and order ID 101. And then we have the relevant order information. And we can see that these 2 lines here are distinct from one another. So how did we actually then bring that into an application? We just data chipped it like we would any other table. We go here, link it to our data store, select our variable, which is going to be our table view that we're going to be creating later, and you click update. And it's just like any other table. So let's hop into the back end and actually see how we put this together. So this is my project, and I've done a few bits to actually put together some data for this video, but the main thing that's important is that we can go into our data store and look at the tables. So I'm going to show you 2 different approaches to putting this together. One that's just using the tables themselves, with each containing a foreign key to the other one, and I'll walk through what that means in a moment. And the second approach is having a linking table that does the job of linking the 2 things together for you, so that the tables themselves can remain separate. So opening up customers, we can see we have that customer information, and opening up orders, we can see we have our order information. Now let's look at the table view that we were using. It's called customer orders, and you can see it looks a little bit different than a table when you view it in a data store. It doesn't have all the same options at the top, and that's because whilst you can directly edit and change a table, your table view is just a view. You can use it to view information, but you can't use it to edit information. So if you want to edit the information within your table view, you need to still interact with the source table that the table view is drawing from. So if I wanted to edit the customer information for Alice Johnson, I couldn't do it by interacting with the table view. I'd have to go and interact with my customers table. But my table view means I can view it all in one consolidated way. So how did I make this? And I'll recreate it for you so that you can see. So first thing, I need to give it a name, and then tell it the table that I want to use as my starting point, which in my case is going to be my customers table. And then if you look further down, we have some further options. We have joins, which is where we're going to add additional tables that we want to link together. We have our queries, which allow you to then actually then say, I only want to link together tables based on a certain query across multiple tables. And then finally, you'll have a list of all of your particular columns in your specific tables. So we can then actually click these to turn things on or off. And you'll get to see why that's quite useful in a moment. And we'll talk more about this shortly. So let's start adding some tables. Click on join. Joins, we have options to left join or right join. And if we actually view our views on the right hand side, you can see some further information about what these mean. So from our instances, we're just going to leave it at join. I'm going to select the table we want to link to. So I'm going to say I'm going to link to my orders table. And in each of these tables, if we hop back and have a look, we can see in our orders table, we have a link to a particular order ID, and we have a customer ID. And that customer ID is then going to link us to our customers table, to our customer ID column. So we can see that's what we've configured here. We've said starting at customers, we're going to join it to the orders table, where the customer ID in the customers table links to the customer ID in the orders table. And now that we've added this, we can add multiple if we wanted to, if we've got multiple tables to link. And again, we link it in a similar fashion when we say what IDs we're linking together across each table. And at the bottom, we can now see tick boxes for all of the columns that we are going to be displaying. So we can turn things off if we want to. So for instance, maybe in my view, I don't want to be able to see the ID for the customers table. I just want to be able to see orders and everything else. But I'll leave them all enabled for now. The last thing that's quite important to know is that you can actually, where you have columns with the same name, for example, customers has an ID column and orders has an ID column. You can go to aliases and you can see what they're going to be called elsewhere. So in this instance, in our customers table, the ID column is now going to be referred to as customers ID, but the label for that will be displayed as ID. So we can make that a bit simpler by making the two things be exactly the same. So we've now got customers ID, or we can call it customer table ID. And then we can do the same with our orders. So you can see orders, since it was linked, it's already given it sort of a rename with orders ID with a space as the label, but I'm going to call it orders table ID. So I can rename those. I can click on update. And so now we can see we have the ID of the actual table view row itself. We then have the orders table ID and then the customer table ID as well. So we know exactly where information lives and how to access it if we need to. For example, if we were accessing this view and I wanted to update the order information for this row, I'd be able to use this to find this row in my table, in my automation, and then within that row, I could then use my order table ID to then access my orders table and know which row I'm updating. So how would you use this in automation? Again, very similarly to the app that we saw previously, you data ship it exactly as you would a table. So it's as simple as data stores, coming to our customer orders table, saving it and running it. And then we can see we can access that information in our automation just as we would a regular table. The idea is for this to be as seamless and familiar as possible. So let's have a look at our second approach. What if we wanted to use a linking table? Say our orders table didn't contain a customer ID, and say our customers table didn't contain a customer ID as well. What if we just had an ID column, name, email, an orders table with just ID, order date, and total amount? In this scenario, the two tables that we're linking together don't contain anything internally to actually link the two things together. So we have to provide that for it. This is useful in scenarios where you don't actually want to add any additional information to the tables, or if you just want to have that housed separately so that, let's say, if information were to be accessed in orders, by default, the user or whoever may be accessing the table, without further information, wouldn't be able to then know which customer it links to unless they had information that we are going to provide. So it's a good thing from a security standpoint as well. So you've got options in terms of how you might want to present information. So in this instance, I've created a third table called orders to customers, which does what it says in the tin. It itself has an ID, as all tables do. All it's doing is linking the two things together. So we provide a customer table ID and an orders table ID. So let's change up our customer orders table to use this model instead. We're going to start with our customers table. We're going to link it to our orders to customers table, where the customer ID, we're actually using the ID now. The ID in customers uses the customer table ID in orders to customers. Now we have access to orders to customers in our configuration, so we can take it to the next step. We can do another join, take our orders table, and then we're going to say which of those existing tables that we've already linked, whether it be customers or order to customers, we want to actually be linking. So we're going to say we want our orders table to link to our orders to customers table, where the table ID equals the ID in orders. And if we update this, we should see, there we go. I've got only one example in my relationship here, but the output is much the same. And again, you can turn off any additional things that you don't want to see. So in this instance, I actually don't want to see any information about my relationship in the middle. So we can update that. And there we are. We have the exact same output, but without having to have any information within the original tables that links the two things together.